I think even just like feeling that sensation, especially for when Shay was crowning too, to be like, okay, this is not the tissue's supposed to do that. Like it just feels like
Right.
an intense stretch because, you hear people and they're like, oh, this can be so painful and crazy. And you're like, well, okay, well, but your body's supposed to do that. And I think using the mirror that helped and to visualize like that bulging, like, do I see myself relaxing and like elongating the pelvic floor?
Getting pregnant and giving birth are two of the most exciting things you can ever hope to experience in this life. The moment you think you could be pregnant, you're frantically searching for all the best information, which is why you're here today. I'm Stephanie King, and with my many years of experience as a professional childbirth educator, doula, and lover of all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, I'm here to make preparing for your birth enjoyable, empowering, and totally easy. Each week, I'll cover different topics, interview professionals, and get into the nitty-gritty birth stories from mamas just like you. And when you're ready for more, you can join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I take you step by step through exactly how to prepare your mind, body, spirit, and partner for a birth you love. So let's get started.
All right. I hope you guys are ready for another My Essential Birth Mama Birth Story podcast. With me today, I have Haley. If you will take a moment and say hi to everybody,
Yeah,
introduce yourself, tell us about your family,
yeah,
and then we'll kind
definitely.
of dive into your pregnancy.
Sounds good. My name's Haley Sampson. So I live in a suburb of Milwaukee. I don't know age-wise if you want to know, but I'm 31. I have a daughter and then my husband Kyle. My daughter was born in September on Labor Day, so September 2nd in 2024. Her name's Shay. She's a sweetie. She's very has her toddler moments now, so it's been fun, and she's full on walking. So it's been fun running after her these days. And just, yeah, it's been a busy transition, but we love it. I'm also a pelvic floor physical therapist. I like to nerd out about birth, and I loved listening to the My Essential Birth podcast and taking the class. And I'm just really excited to help, future moms and dads out there that might be a little bit anxious about the whole birth process. So I'm excited to share my story, and yeah, very thankful to be on today.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. I
Mhm.
am totally curious. I want to know a little bit about your whole pelvic floor stuff.
Sure.
How long have you been doing that? Do you
Yeah.
work specifically with pregnant women? And if not, I'm sure that you've seen your fair share. And then from a pelvic floor therapist like background, what were the things that you knew that you were going to do during your pregnancy to keep your body, the way it needs to be, or like prepare
Mhm.
for pushing or whatever that looked like?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been a PT for 7 years, and I started in like more of an outpatient orthopedic type setting. And then actually it was right before we knew we wanted to start to have a family. That's when I was like, oh, I really like pelvic floor therapy. This sounds really cool. Two of my friends and coworkers at the time were pelvic floor therapists. And so I just decided to like dive in and take the Herman and Wallace classes. So I've been a pelvic PT for 2 years now. And it definitely, from a PT standpoint, I knew like, okay, I got to keep moving and stay up with my exercises and everything. And then with pelvic floor specific, I don't know if you want me to dive into like all of the
Do
nitty
it
gritty,
as
but
much as you
yeah,
want. Yes.
yeah, for sure. I did a lot of like the podcasts. I listened to your podcast every day, which was super helpful. And then I did read like the Ina May natural, I think it's natural or guide to natural childbirth. But with pelvic floor specific, I definitely like worked a lot on my breath work and learning like to connect with my pelvic floor. And definitely like I have pelvic floor tension. So working that out with like my foam roller and my pelvic wand. Definitely did my perineal stretching. And then just a lot of like the mindfulness and that meditation, but pairing that with my breathing to learn to just like let my pelvic floor go. But yeah, I pretty much stayed up to just like my normal like strength training routine and stretching. I found that really helpful. I didn't go to pelvic floor therapy during pregnancy. I was lucky enough that I was like, okay, I'm doing okay. But the last couple weeks, I did get pretty bad SPD. And so it's nice because my husband's a physical therapist too. he's not a pelvic floor therapist, but he's an ortho PT. So he was able to do some like manual techniques and stuff when I wasn't feeling so good. So I was very lucky to have him too.
No
So yeah.
kidding. I always told my husband, I'm like, I don't care what you do, but you should minor in chiropractic care so that I can have
So
some
you
help.
can work on me. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Is that where you guys met then? Because you're
Yeah,
both
we met in
ortho?
PT school. Yep.
Cute. I
Yeah.
love that.
So
That's so
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think all of that's really helpful and good advice coming from someone who not only sees pregnant women, but was pregnant like during all of this. So I think that's really helpful. That's really great. Okay. Talk to me about your pregnancy. Tell me all about the little things and the big things. I want to hear about it.
Sure. Yeah. So I was very grateful. Like I had a really good pregnancy. I never really dealt with like, getting sick or nausea. I would say earlier on in the first trimester, I had like a couple bouts of, oh gosh, like that food sounds disgusting, where I never actually got sick, but I did feel a little nauseous. But other than that, like I was moving really well and like I had nothing like major come up. One like special thing, my husband and I, we decided to not find out if we were having a boy or girl. So that was pretty cool and exciting. And then, yeah, I did switch though over to a midwife group at about 25 weeks. So I would say that was like the biggest thing. And so I was definitely like very anxious about that. And then just like talking with my husband and then like really thinking about it, I was like, you know what, this is kind of how I want my birth to be. I'd never really had much thought about it. And then, yeah, so that was like the biggest thing was at 25 weeks, I did switch over to like a whole new healthcare system and a midwife group from my OB. So, yeah.
And what was it, about
Yeah.
your pregnancy or that provider that made you want to look?
Right. Yeah. So she is my OB and gyne. She was my gynecologist. She's so nice. She's so sweet, would take a lot of time with me. I felt really comfortable with her. But I think it was just like my own research, reading the Ina May's book, and then listening to your podcast. I was like, oh, shoot. Wait, I think I actually want to try to maybe do like the natural childbirth route. And I just felt that from other people's experiences and then listening to the podcast, I was like, I think a midwife group might be a better fit. I'm a very, not like I should say it would be confrontational, but I feel like I'm not a great advocate for myself. So I wrote out like a bunch of questions and sent it on the like portal or app you use with your providers. And her nurse got back to me and like they were pretty like vague responses, but there was just something like, I don't know, this just doesn't feel right. Like I just feel I'm going to be more like comfortable with a midwife group. So I talked around and my sister-in-law had gone to this hospital. Another friend had gone to this hospital and I heard like they have an awesome OB and midwife group. So I decided, I was like, you know what, I'm going to switch over. And so I'm so happy I did. And right away, like my first appointment, they handed me like a birth plan sheet, like, what were your preferences? And it was like all these things. I was like, oh my God, yeah, yeah. And she was just so nice. And I felt very at ease. And I was like, okay, I'm in the right place. So,
Aw.
yeah.
I love that. I always tell women, like, that's the thing. Like, if you try to make the switch or you go meet, you're going to know one of two things. You're with the right provider or you definitely need to switch. And it's going to be so much better over here. So,
for sure. Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I love that. Okay, so 25 weeks, you switched over. Was it pretty easy going from then? Anything that came up towards even the end of your pregnancy that you dealt with?
Yeah. Second trimester was really good. Third trimester was good. Just towards the end, the really bad SPD. But from the testing standpoint and everything, like everything looked good. I did go over. So I was 41 weeks in 3 days. So that was like the biggest thing. And, at my last appointment, they were kind of like, all right, it's Labor Day weekend, just go home, relax. We'll catch up, I think at like 41 and actually 41 and 3 was supposed to be my next appointment. And they're like, at that appointment, we can discuss your options. So that was the biggest thing. I know they said like at 42 weeks, that's like kind of their maximum. But they were like willing to like, walk me through my options. So I was really like, oh gosh, I don't want to be induced. So that was like the biggest thing towards the end, I would say.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Aw, okay. How about your birth partner? How about dad? How
Yeah.
did he support you? Did he watch the videos with you? Did he
Oh
do
yeah.
relaxation practice? Talk to me about that.
Yes. Yeah. So Kyle was great. Every Friday, probably, I'm like trying to think, I feel like it was the end of the second trimester. We started doing the My Essential Birth class every Friday. And he was invested because he was like, okay, we're going in. He knew my goal and like how I really wanted to be able to go the natural childbirth route. So he's like, okay, I've got you. He did help me through, we did the ice challenge one where you put the ice. Oh gosh, that one sucked, but that one was really good. I
Good
was like,
practice
oh
though,
my
right?
God. Yeah. But that one was really good to help with like learning to breathe and everything. He practiced a lot of like the affirmations too, and like the hands-on stuff too. He was great because he kind of already has like a good, with like the orthopedic background. So that was really helpful. And then he also we kind of discussed like, okay, do I want to get a doula or, are you going to be my support person? I think at that point, once he's like, no, I can do it. I'll be your support person. And he would take notes all the time too during the class, which was like really cute and awesome. So he was very much like very supportive in that aspect. He knew my birth plan in and out. We kind of walked through scenarios too, like, what if this happens? And I'm not in the mind space to be like, answer for the care team. He was very much going to be the one to deal with that, which was great, which was like a big concern of mine.
Hmm. I love
So
that. I can like hear and feel from you because you had mentioned, yeah, I might not be the one to step up for myself, that he kind of stepped in and took that role. And oh my gosh, that's what
yes.
every mom needs,
Yes,
right? To
definitely.
be on the
Yeah.
same page. That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, how
Mhm.
about your preparation? And I mean, like, people want to hear like the daily things that you were
Yeah.
doing. You talked about, watching the birth course and maybe doing
Mhm.
labor meditation, but like, what did it look like for you to prepare?
Sure. Yeah. So the podcasts I would listen to daily, just to get into like a positive mindset, and tried to listen to just all the birth stories too, just so that I could get into like a good positive again mindset. And even if I were to hear other people's birth stories, if they weren't really positive, they were more negative, you know just not trying to stay away from it, just say, okay, that was their experience, but I'm going to make my own kind of thing. And then exercise was important too. Like I would probably exercise about 4 times a week, primarily weightlifting. I really liked Nourish Move Love on YouTube. She's more like weightlifting focused, and she has a pregnancy and postpartum channel, and I really liked that. And then Move with Nicole Pilates, I do like once a week. She is not specific for pregnancy and postpartum, but I just love, she has a challenging but like really good kind of like glute booty type workout plan. So I really like her stuff, and walking and like HIIT training. So I did still do like a lot of jumping and like higher interval training, but towards the end, squat, even body weight squats, I was like dying. So
Yeah.
yeah, just try to stay active and stretching. And then with the meditation, I got specific where I started using my essential oil I knew I was going to use during labor, just to nerd out with like the olfactory nerve, trying to gauge that a little bit. So I would use the essential oil, and I loved the elevator track that you guys had. It's the one where you're like lying
Mm,
down. Yeah. Um,
yes.
that one, for
Yeah.
some reason, I think sometimes I would pass out. Like I would do it before I would go to bed. And I was like, oh my God, I'd like wake up, like, where am I? But I would use it.
That's
It
how you know
was
you're
like
doing it
really,
right.
yeah, I was like, oh wow, I'm so relaxed. But I would do the meditation. I try not to get too like stressed about it or feel like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. But towards the end of the second trimester is really when I like kicked in with that, doing that probably like 3 to 4 times a week. And I would do it before I go to bed, probably for like 10-15 minutes, and then just have the essential oil going and just get into like a comfortable position. So that was very helpful. Towards the end too, this was like a weird thing I would do. I hate wall squats, but I would get into like a wall sit and just hold it for a minute and just like think through like you can do anything for a minute, and
I
like
love
those
that.
affirmations. And I was like trying to relax my face when I was in that position. So that was kind of like another thing, kind of like that ice challenge, that was helpful. And then other than that too, the perineal stretching I started probably around like 36 weeks, and I used a pelvic wand for that. probably for a couple minutes. And I used a mirror too, to be like very specific, to visualize like, okay, this is not pain that I'm feeling. It's just an intense stretch. And I would kind of like reiterate that and like look to see no harm's being done. It's just me stretching the perineal area. And that I felt was like really helpful, just making that visual connection. And then the red raspberry leaf tea I started doing too, probably like 35 weeks. I actually enjoyed the taste. So I was like, this is pretty good. So I felt fine with that. The, what were they? I can't think. The dates, I could not, I don't know. I just like don't love the taste. So I did not do the whole date thing. I tried it for a couple days and I just thought, not for me. But primarily movement. And I would do your guys, the cat cows, the forward leaning inversions too. And that felt good. So I tried to do that, probably starting the second trimester all the way on. And that was just a nice thing, towards the end of my day I would do. And the deep squat too. I think I worked up to like maybe like 10 minutes. And it was like just for me, just it felt like a good, like, oh, this is a good pelvic opener. And yeah, so that was my main prepping in general. I just feel like having more knowledge and information about it was also super beneficial, like going into and feeling prepared. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's like all the stuff you did, all the things that I would tell everybody to do these things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And I love the pelvic wand idea too, because like you were saying, like not only is it not causing harm, but the sensation that you're feeling to know like when it's time to push, which you wouldn't know this until you're pushing and somebody's trying to tell you like, no, push down towards your bum,
Right.
But when you have that prior, then I'm curious if that helped you kind of connect your mind body to where you needed to have that force or that energy going. Did you notice that was helpful?
Yeah, I definitely did. I think even just like feeling that sensation, especially for when Shay was crowning too, to be like, okay, this is not the tissue supposed to do that. Like it just feels like an intense stretch.
Yeah.
Because, you hear people and they're like, oh, this can be so painful and crazy. And you're like, well, okay, well, but your body's supposed to do that. And I think using the mirror that helped, and to visualize like that bulging, like, do I see myself relaxing and like elongating the pelvic floor? So that was very, very helpful for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Before we jump into your birth story, because that's the next step here, but I'm like, the like pregnant person, I want other people to hear this. So like pelvic PT from that place in your mind, when would you tell moms to start meeting with someone like yourself so that they can really prep their body for the work ahead?
I feel like if someone isn't having any like orthopedic concerns or like the dreaded round ligament or pubic bone, coming in later, like towards the middle to end of second trimester and third trimester is beneficial. I do something called push prep classes, or not classes, but like sessions. And I use biofeedback. So it's a tool that we would put these electrodes near the perineal space and basically have first, awareness. Are you able to do a pelvic floor elongation? Because that's what essentially your pelvic floor has to get out of the way when you are delivering the baby. So a lot of people, that can be very tricky because everyone knows how to do a Kegel for the most part, but then it's like the elongating.
How do you relax
let it go. Yeah.
Right.
And practicing pushing or doing open versus closed glottis in different positions. So we will use the biofeedback in that aspect to see, okay, if you try sideline and doing your pushing, right? What does your pelvic floor do? Does it spike up or is it staying relatively low? So we can have people try different positions to see what position works best for them. Because some people go like, hey, I think I'm going to be great in hands and knees. We know the pelvic floor is pretty silent in hands and knees. And then they try it and they're like, oh, I don't like this at all. And then partner assisted push prep. So we'll have someone's birth partner come in and teach them hand-on techniques, and very much so like what you guys are doing too. I always refer patients. I'm like, my essential birth class podcast, go for it. And so that's very helpful. We have a whole packet of different positions you can labor down in. And when you get to that second phase of labor, we have we go through like different ways your partner can help and just like get you through if you're having like a back labor versus, traditional through the abdomen or wherever, and different type of modalities that they could help or have you use. So I usually tell people then like waiting, that end of second or third trimester. So it's fresh in their mind.
Yeah.
But push prep, usually it's a couple sessions. Let's say we do the pelvic assessment, which we can do vaginally in the second trimester and on. If they have a high risk pregnancy, we always discuss with their provider. But that will gain us insight of, do you have a lot of pelvic floor tension? Do we need to work on that manually, or teach you how to use a pelvic wand or dilators? It kind of depends on what they're dealing with. But for push prep specifically, I would say later on, like end of second.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I like that idea too. I've never taken push prep. This sounds like a genius idea though, because it does feel different to push in different like rotations of your body and stuff. So, or positions in general. So that's really interesting. I like that.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. So let's dive into it. Tell us all about your birth.
Yes. Oh man. So, it was fun, talking back through this with my husband, just like going all the details, and I did write it out. And I tear up. So I'm sorry if that happens. And also I'm getting over a cold. So I'm sorry if my voice keeps like cracking or that's just one thing going on. But, so Shay was late, right? My due date was August 23rd. And so we went to that appointment on the Friday. And this whole time I had not had cervical checks done. Honestly, just because they're like, yeah, you can do it if you want, but they were just like, whatever. So I didn't really ever have cervical checks. And on that Friday, I was like, oh, Kyle, should I get one? I'm so anxious. I just want to, see what's happening. And he's like, just talk to your provider and see. And she's like, you know what, this weekend, just relax. We're not doing a cervical check. She's like, you could be you could be a centimeter or whatever. And like, nothing happened or, so I'm like, okay. So that weekend, it was Labor Day weekend. And it was funny because one of my husband's friends was even like, how poetic would it be if you delivered on Labor Day? And I was like, so funny. But I honestly like didn't expect to go this late. So, I was doing all the things like curb walking, and finally I was like, I'm just going to relax. So we went to our neighbor's Labor Day party. And we laugh now. We're like, it was her jalapeno poppers that put me into labor. But I had a couple of those and, came back that night. So on the 1st, and we went to bed, and around, was it like 3 or 4 a.m. I woke up, not with like, it wasn't intense or anything, but it was just kind of like that annoying, like, I don't know, like, kind of tightening in my stomach. And I was like, okay. And then I went out on the couch maybe at like 6 or 7 a.m. because I was like, what, I just can't get comfortable in bed. So went on the couch, tried to sleep. Then I turned on the This Is Us TV show. And I was watching that, and which is not a great show when you're pregnant because it's a very emotional show. But so I was watching that. And then my husband was supposed to go golf, and he comes out at like 7:30 or so. And he's like, I'm not going golfing today, am I? I was like, no, probably not a good idea. So I'm so glad he didn't do that because that would have been fun. And I was just lying there, and like at 12:30 or so, I felt a loud pop, and I sat up, and I was like, Kyle, oh my gosh. He's like, what's wrong? And he came running into the family room. I stood up and my water broke. So random because I was like, I wasn't even doing anything. Like I was just, lying on my side. And so that happened. I went to the bathroom, and I was just like sitting on the toilet, and I definitely had the bloody show. More so actually it was the mucus plug. And we were like, okay, I want to labor down at home as much as possible. But I used that the contraction calculator. And so I noticed, so this was probably around like 1 p.m. They were starting, it was like, I don't know, every minute on the clock lasting for the minute. And it would be every 5 minutes. And I said, okay, I'm going to monitor it. And we monitor it. And then it was an hour that had been happening. I'm like, we should probably go. Just cause I don't know, your first time, I was like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know if this could start progressing really quick or what. So we had our bags packed. The hospital's 15 minutes from my house. So it was an easy drive. We get there, OB triage, they check, they're like, yep, and it was like that dipstick or whatever. Yeah. And they're like, yep, your amniotic fluid. So your water broke. They checked, I was at like 3.5 centimeters. Contractions, baby was looking fine. And so they said, okay, we're going to admit you. And at the time I was like, okay, just kind of breathing through them, and I could still hold conversation, and, it was totally fine. So I want to say we got to the room around, it was like 3:30, 3:34. And our nurse was awesome. And she was just like really talking, with me and Kyle, just like, I don't know, just random stuff. But then I remember at a certain point, I was like, I can't talk anymore. I have to really think about this. So another note too, they did intermittent monitoring. So I wasn't wearing anything. They would just use the Doppler and check. So that was nice. And then I got the, why can't I think of it? The hep block.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about blood pressure. You were touching your finger.
No. The hep block. So I had that. That was like the biggest, thing. So, and that felt fine. Like I, could move around and it was good. They do have tubs at this hospital. So I knew I wanted to, you can't deliver in the tub here specifically, but you can, labor down in the tub. So I knew I wanted to use that at some point. And so mainly I was just walking around the room. And then at one point I just started feeling really uncomfortable and I just kept vomiting. And so Kyle was like, oh my God, you're in transition. Like, I think you're in transition.
He really is a doula.
Yeah, I was like, you were my doula. Yeah. And so he called Katie, our midwife. She came in and she checked me, and I was at like 5 or 5.5 centimeters. So at that point I was kind of discouraged. I was like, oh my God, just because I kept getting sick. But that probably only lasted a couple minutes. And she suggested, she's like, I know you're walking around, maybe go in the shower. So got in the shower and I thought like back to the course, I was like, okay, 5 centimeters, maybe the baby's in like the mid pelvis. And so I started doing just lunges on the shower chair during contractions, and Kyle would kind of just, put the water on my back or my abdomen. And it was, you could like really feel a lot of pressure, but I thought, okay, I just got to get her moving down. And then I kind of just transitioned from like the shower. I'd sit backwards on the toilet and kind of just like rock from side to side. A lot of swaying. I had a birth comb, so I was like just like digging in. And then at some point, I just knew, I was like, I got to get in the tub. So I got in the tub, and I was just in like a trance. Like Kyle's like, you were squeezing that comb in my hand like no other. I kind of blacked out, to be quite honest. And he said it was probably like 2 hours. I just remember getting dark in the room. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember my midwife brought in like a crystal lamp because it was just like, pitch black in her room. And so then at some point I was like, I got to get up. And I got up, walked to the bed. I was swaying, and the contractions were every minute or like every on top of one another. And I just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. And I felt like I had to go up on my tiptoes and like sway, and like the pressure was just so heavy. And my nurse, she was so awesome. And she knew my birth plan, but I kept saying like, I need medication. And she was like, okay, but and Kyle's like, well, no, you can do it. You can do it. And I told him to shut up, I think like twice within that whole time. And then she said, okay, if you want an IV medication, we have to, they have to check where you're at. And Katie hadn't done a cervical check since when I was like 5 or 5.5 centimeters. At this point, it was probably like 8:30 at night. And so she came in and she's like, you're at 10 centimeters, like you're ready to go. And I remember just being so exhausted. And Kyle's like, you did it, you made it. And so after that point, it got a lot easier. Like the contractions were like, okay, I'm feeling better. I did try first pushing on all fours, and I just couldn't get comfortable in that position. So Katie suggested, she's like, why don't you try one of your other positions? So I went into sideline, and I was in sideline, and I would switch pretty often. And then when she started crowning and I was in sideline, it just got to a point where I was like, I feel like my hip kept cramping. So I was like, I can't get comfortable, even with Kyle and my nurse holding my leg. They use the stirrup too to help assist. I think maybe a peanut ball too. I can't remember. But I just remember like, oh my God, my hip is spasming. So I ended up going into a seated position. And they had the mirror too at an angle where I could see my daughter's head. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And that was just super motivating. And at a certain point, my midwife was just like, she is so close, and I kept just doing, I'm pretty sure I was mooing the whole time. That was my open glottis technique. So
I love it.
I just remember at one point, she's like, she's basically there. And like, I did kind of like a louder moo and she came out and we didn't know if, she was a boy or girl. One of the NICU nurses did come in because she had meconium and she said, oh, she used the word, like the phrase she, and I didn't catch it, but Kyle did. And he goes, it's a girl. Yeah. And then it was just so like magical. And I like felt like, oh my God, I did it. And it was just so beautiful. Sorry, this is when I always tear up. But yeah, they brought her back to me and we had like, an hour, a little bit more, just like skin to skin, and she latched. And yet it was just so beautiful. And I couldn't have done it without my husband. And yeah, sorry.
No.
I always tear up on that. So
it's so beautiful.
Yeah, but it was such a great experience and honestly had like such a good care team. And, I just want other people to know, like, if this is something that they want to do or, accomplish, and every birth is beautiful. And it's something that, though, if you do want to go the natural route, like, you can do it. Like, if you set your mind to it, and obviously birth is unpredictable in every way. So, you just do what you can. And the end result is so magical. So yeah, that was my birth experience or birth story. So yeah.
I love it.
Sorry, towards the end, I get so emotional.
It is emotional. Yeah, it is hard to just not burst into tears every time you see a baby born. And there's no more sacred space that you can be in. The feeling in that room and the whole experience is just out of this world. It's like nothing else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, can I bring you back and will you talk about the contractions a little bit?
Yes,
so you said they kind of started a minute long, 5 minutes apart. Where were you feeling them? How were you working through them? Was it more mental in the beginning? And then how did you and your husband work together as time went on?
Yeah.
How much, like, when did they get closer together? How did that change? Kind of walk us through the contraction part of things.
Yeah, so they definitely at first, like towards, I would say when we were still, like when I was still laboring at home after my water broke, I felt them all in my abdomen. I never felt it in my low back. It just felt like a lot of tightening at first in my abdomen. And initially, like earlier on, they were very sporadic. It was, maybe every 7 minutes, maybe every 10 minutes. That's how I knew. I was like, okay, I think we need to go to the hospital because they were so like on the dot. So that contraction timer tool was awesome. And I just knew,
Isn't that so neat that our bodies do that? Like they follow a rhythm that you can catch.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so cool.
I know. It's incredible. Yeah. So once we were at the hospital, I could definitely still, and you can see them on the monitor. So you're like, oh, okay, that's coming on. But I just did a lot of slower down diaphragmatic breathing. So trying to breathe in through my abdomen and rib cage and a longer exhale. The birth comb was great too. Loved that thing. So I very much so used that like earlier on, even on the drive to the hospital. Then once they started picking up and like I couldn't talk through them, same thing. I really focused on that diaphragmatic breathing, really expanding through my abdomen and rib cage. And then when I was in the tub, when they started to get more intense, it was all through the abdomen and it felt like an intense period cramp. And I felt like my body, you're fighting it. You're like, you're like, I can't relax through this. But then doing the meditation, especially the elevator track, helped me so much. Honestly, that like countdown, just like counting down just really helped me like, okay, we're good. We're doing okay. we did have that playing in the room too, or in the bathroom when I was in the tub. So that kind of like deep music too just kind of really helped me to relax, and the warmth of the water. But I would say with the contractions, they were always like through my abdomen, and it always just felt like a tightening or like intense period cramp towards the end when I was near transition. That's when I would say they were like, I had to like go up on my tiptoes. I felt like so like, oh my gosh, like so much pressure down in my pelvis. And it just felt like an intense, an intense period cramp, I would say. Yeah. So, but the breathing and the mindfulness was the most beneficial for me in the birth calm. Yeah.
Okay, and how about the pushing? Because as we know, like, and you can tell me if this happened for you as well, but did they usually contractions, they space out a little bit, you get a little bit of a breath, and then you feel the building. How did you kind of work through those? And then what kind of breathing or positioning or what did you use to get through
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, they definitely did that for me too, where they kind of like eased off a bit and it was a lot longer time of rest, which was so great. I for the pushing it, honestly, it felt like you had to like poop, like an urge of it just felt like a lot of pressure. And I could feel her like moving down. Um, with the pushing, I did start in the all fours position. I primarily just initially just was doing my diaphragmatic breathing. Once I moved to like sideline in the seated position, I did more open glottis. And like I was saying, I was doing the like moo like that. That just for me, I was able to like relax my pelvic floor and kind of do that bulging a little bit more. Um, so I would say that was helpful. My husband too, like honest, like it was nice having him like right at the head of the bed with me. He was kind of just like I was getting hot, so he had a fan going, which was helpful, and then I was holding his hand. I didn't as much do like the the meditative track during that time. I think just because I knew I was focusing on that open glottis pushing, and just really trying to visualize like everything expanding down there, holding it open as I was using more like my core to try to get her moving down. Um, so sideline, that was good. The seated reclined position felt the most comfortable for me. I felt like I could just like completely relax during the pushing. And then in between the contractions, I was able to just like completely let go. And using the mirror was very beneficial too during the pushing. But I think like with the breathing, it's just something it's good to practice. Like side note during pregnancy towards the end, just so you know that feeling. And I think the mirror was helpful too, because like you said, like you could see, you could see her crowning, but you could just like feel everything
Know
kind
where
of
to put the energy,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and like holding it open while you're doing your open glottis pushing to get her moving down even further, which was helpful. So it was very much, it wasn't coached, my midwife was, said, do what feels right for you, rest during contractions. She was very calm demeanor and like the nursing staff was all very calm and nice. It was never at any point like, okay, like, push now or like the counting backwards. It was very like I felt very much in control, which was great. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. What a neat story. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
thank
such
you.
detail too.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, can I ask you about the birth course really quick? If you want to tell me about that, kind of what did you love about it? What did it help you with or help you overcome? How did it prepare your birth partner? What were the things that you really pulled from it and took into your birth space?
Sure. Yeah. I definitely loved like your guys' outline and packets were great because it was so like well organized. I really just liked going through the phases of labor. I liked that whole segment of how you guys talked about like what to do if, you're at a stall, like movements you can try. Um, for me and for Kyle, that was like helpful, like breaking it down. But honestly, like the practice was so great because it just seeing what would work for us because I knew like for me I usually like someone like holding me or like holding my hand, and so trying those different things like during the ice challenge was helpful just to see what I liked and what I didn't like. I think having all those different options going into the day too was helpful to practice, just so that like for his sake, like on the top of his head, like, okay, let's maybe try this technique, or, to help you relax. Loved, doing that with him on Fridays. And then I also really loved that activity where I don't remember, it was like, it had a bunch of different things, like, okay, you get to choose two, but you have to get rid of one.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
The
I forget all the
birth
yes.
map priority game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was helpful because I wanted to go into it with a mindset of like, I would love this for this, how to happen, like how I planned the birth and everything, like would love for it to go that way. But obviously birth can be unpredictable. And so I wanted to be in the mindset, like if we go in and, I end up having to have a C-section, I want to feel that, okay, at least I was somewhat in control and I had options. So I think that was helpful for me to do that game, to be like, I don't want to be too rigid on my plan. I want to feel like okay with myself that, okay, this is okay if it goes that way. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, talk to me about your best advice for moms and dads.
Sure.
What do you want to say to them?
Yeah, I would say just be as well informed as you can, listen to the podcast, do the class, take notes, husbands or birth partners, like have good, have your partner's understanding of like what they want out of their birth plan, what different things mean, if something comes up, oh, I know what that type of procedure, what they're talking about, so that you can help your partner make that decision and be their advocate. I think that's, huge, is if you're not, especially for me, like I was not a great advocate for myself. So if, you have someone to help you with that, I think that's very important. And then trust your gut too. If you feel, I don't know, maybe this provider isn't right for me, it's okay to go and find someone else that would work with you, because in the end, like, I think you've referenced this, you only get one birth, right? So just, you want to feel good about it and find someone that you're really comfortable with and that aligns with your, outlook of birth or how you want things to go that day. And just keep moving and enjoy pregnancy as much as you can, that you won't get that time back ever. So just enjoy it all. Yeah.
Oh, that's such good advice. Haley, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story and
Of
being
course.
here with me today.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm super excited and hope everyone gets something out of it. So yeah.
If you loved what you heard today, the very best way to support this podcast and help other moms to find it is to leave a quick review. I read one at the beginning of the episodes, and I would love for yours to be next. And if you're ready for even more pregnancy, birth, and postpartum goodness, come join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I will hold your hand and walk you through pregnancy and birth step by step so you're totally prepared for a birth you'll love. See you next week.